Thank you so much for having me, and a wonderful good morning also from my side. Truly thrilled to be here this morning, and certainly very happy to share with you what we have been doing at SAP. 1 year ago, in 2021, after 20 years in the HR arena, I was taking on a new job. I was becoming SAP's first Chief Future of Work Officer. And I have to tell you, I'm super passionate about that topic. I also have to tell you that I'm a little bit proud of my company that they're making that kind of bold move to create such a role, acknowledging that this topic is truly important, acknowledging that it somehow needs to be managed holistically, and also appreciating that it takes more than simply an HR function to get this right. So my role includes HR topics, my role includes IT aspects, my role includes facility elements, and all of this put together. And of course, this is something which is interesting. Today, 1 year later, on stage, here in Dublin, I'm very happy to share with you what we have learned, very happy to share with you what we could do better, very happy to share with you also what we are still up to, and very happy to share with you what is maybe in for you when it comes to the future of work in your own organization. So let's do some double clicking. I guess I'm telling no secrets to all of you as HR professionals that the world around us is transforming with a breakneck speed. That's a no-brainer. And the race to the future is fueled by mega trends we are all aware of, be it the climate change, being the world becoming more VUCA, business model innovation, or I should probably rather say business model disruption, and in parallel, the war for talent, which we're all aware of and which is not new, is getting more intense day by day, quarter by quarter, year by year. And in parallel, employees are having completely different expectations moving forward. By the year 2025, the expectations are that probably 80% of our workforces will come from the digital native camp. So completely different expectations towards HR services, being available anytime, anywhere on your mobile device, working from anywhere, anytime. So this whole topic of flexible working models will be probably must-have. Therefore, long story short, at SAP we thought it's an imperative to come up with a holistic future of work agenda and to drive this forward, because this is going to be a massive change that is facing us over the upcoming years. When we talk about the future of work, we actually distinguish between 3 time horizons. The first time horizon is all about the pandemic. Over the last 2 years, a lot of us have done an awesome job to get through this. And this was not easy, we all know this. Shifting people to work remotely more or less overnight, making sure that things are still happening from business continuity perspective. And yes, this was not easy. But right now, we have almost gotten it done. And after 2 years, I think it's fair to say this was not easy, but it was also not the future of work yet. This was rather crisis management. This was rather maybe a wake-up call. And therefore, as we speak, in 2022, we are now getting ready for the post-pandemic era. So here in Ireland, it's simply great to see that you have already now prepared for kind of reopenings or already reopening. In a lot of other countries, this is still happening. So people are getting prepared to also get back to the offices. So you are kind of leading the pack. And that's interesting, because this means you've got to be ready for that. This is going to be a huge change, and we're all experiencing that right now. So at SAP, we've made a conscious decision to go for a hybrid working model after the pandemic. And this means finding the right balance between on-site work and being also working from home, or come up with a mix of the 2 of them. But you need to get it right. And this is not an easy one. Hopefully, and we are keeping all our fingers crossed, that over the next couple of quarters across the globe, we will be able to more or less get back to that new normal, which we call it. And then by 2023, we can make that future of work probably a reality. So moving from that post-pandemic era, we got to already prepare what comes maybe then after flex work, because this is not an easy transition. But more to this in a couple of minutes. Flex work. I know that you are all talking about this, and we as well, but what is it? When we made that kind of, let's say, strategic decision to go into that direction of flex work, we had a strategic discussion or conversation, if you will, also at the board level. The question was, where do we position ourselves as a company on this Flexware continuum? And what you see here on the left side is probably one end of that spectrum. And this is very much free-floating. Kind of no rules, kind of no constraints. People can more or less do whatever they want. Some may call it anarchy, some may call it paradise, I don't know. But certainly something where you got to be careful. And to be honest with you, so far I've seen this only maybe in startup companies, and also there one needs to be careful that this is really working out. On the other end of the spectrum, on the right side, you see the opposite. Something very tightly managed, a lot of regulations, you're kind of checking in, clocking in. And don't get me wrong, for some industries, for some companies, this might be the perfect right thing. For us at SAP, we decided, no, this is not our model. We said for us, it's something that needs to happen. We're building on our own legacy. It's somewhere in the middle. We call it empowerment along business requirements. And this means we are committing to our 100,000 people across the globe that they can decide where, when, and how to work. Of course, in alignment with business requirements, because the customer is, of course, still front and center. Of course, in line with local regulations and legislation, because the situation may be completely different in China versus Japan versus Germany versus Ireland, you name it. But it needs to be in the decision of the employee how to get it right together with the manager and the respective team environment. And therefore, this is what we call our pledge to flex. This is what we have offered to our employees, and so far we're getting great feedback. And that's awesome. However, where the rubber meets the road is, of course, how to operationalize this. So we made a huge promise, and everyone is happy, and we get great media coverage, but now we need to deliver. And what we have done is we have come up with a huge execution engine, which is orchestrating this now across the globe since more or less 6 months. So we have started with kind of a global Flexware guideline, which is setting these guardrails, right? That we have this global umbrella, because if you have global teams and if you're a manager in a global team, you would like to have some kind of consistency. Otherwise, this is not working out. But based on that global Flexware guideline, over the last couple of months, all 75 countries were working out their local policies. And this is different because the local legislation is different. This is a completely different game doing this in Japan versus in Latin America. But it's working out. You got to empower the countries, and then you can come up with something which is globally more or less consistent. In parallel, and you see here a couple of levers that we feel are important to get this right, it's important to continuously listen to your organization. So we have come up with what we call regular future of work pulse checks. So we are checking in, how are people doing? Do they need anything? How is the mental health situation? And are they supportive of the direction we are taking? And as a matter of fact, we got good feedback. More or less 80% of our population were saying, pledge to flex is great, please continue that kind of setup, because they felt this supports work-life balance. This supports certainly also employee engagement. And we all know happy employees will lead to happy customers. Therefore, it's very, very important that all of this is regularly checked. There's something which I also feel is very important, and this is what we call back-to-office workshops. I should probably rather call them back-to-hybrid workshops. And this is a concept where you have a toolbox. It's a 2-hour workshop format where all of our 10,000 managers have the option to have a workshop with their teams to discuss how does this work, When are maybe the days when everyone is coming back to the office to make sure that you have the team meetings and everything. But beyond that, also how to align and how to be productive and what kind of technology do you want to use? What are the meeting standards? That not every time you have a hybrid meeting, right, you start to discuss and to align what kind of methodology you use. No, this needs to be standardized. But once you have this can work out quite nicely, and our pilots are showing this. And of course, and that's probably something which is a no-brainer as a tech company, the digital workplace is key. And yes, I'm talking about the Zooms and the Teams and the WebEx sessions of this world, yes, but also how to organize that stuff. So we have developed a Flex Connect app, if you will, and this is something which in the morning when you come to the office or on the evening before, you can check who will be also in the office and where will they sit, because we don't have fixed desks anymore. Because if people are only coming to the office, I don't know, 3 days a week, you don't need all that office space anymore. You can rather invest what you don't need anymore in cooler workplaces, in other things, and that's helpful. And of course, and you see this here also on that visual, after 2 years of managing through the pandemic, people are stressed everywhere. And therefore, this whole topic of mental health support, whether it's mental health awareness for managers, whether it's an employee assistance program where people can call in and share their concerns, this is something which we feel is of utmost importance to get something like this right. And at the end of the day, this is about people, right? We are all social animals, so therefore manager and employee enablement, how to get this right, is key. So we have come up with a very basic training curriculum in terms of what do managers need to know, how to manage such a hybrid team, and how do you get this right? And how to be close to people if they're not in the office every day anymore. At the same time, employees also need to be enabled for that. Because yes, we have more or less 100% white collar in our organization, so quite a demanding employee base. But they also need to develop, they also need to be enabled, because this is now a lot about self-organization. With empowerment comes also responsibility and accountability. And this is something we got to measure, because we certainly don't want to have any productivity risks. So with that, flex work is currently front and center for us. A lot of focus and a lot of engagement in the organization about that. But we are talking about future of work. We're not just talking flex work. So what is it that may come and that probably will come after that flex work? And when we talk about the future of work after flex work, we slice and dice the topic more or less along 3 dimensions. It's number 1, the future of workforce. Number 2, the future of people and workplace practices. And number 3, ultimately, the future of HR, the HR organization or the HR function itself. So if you close your eyes and if you think of the future of the workforce for your own organization in 5 or 10 years down the road, what does it look like? How many permanent employees will you have? How many gig workers will you have? How many robots will you have in the team? Who knows? And don't underestimate this. In 10 years from now, what is possible with AI, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a certain portion of automation, AI or whatever, at least as part of the workforce already automatically considered. And once you know the target picture, once you know what you need, also from a skill perspective, then of course you can determine how these kind of people practices will need to evolve. Because recruiting or learning or total reward, so the whole bread and butter business of HR will need to evolve. And this means you need to be very clear, how should recruiting look like for permanent employees? This is a different game to do this for permanent employees versus gig workers versus something else. And once you see this and can evolve your respective functions, then you have the blueprint to also understand what this means for your HR function. Because let's face it, technology will be certainly more important than ever. And also the skill evolution of the HR function itself is probably unavoidable. Or, put it positively, it's a great opportunity. So things like digital HR, and this doesn't mean that every HR person should be able to code software, no, on the contrary, but you should be able to know what the systems are offering, how to use that, and all that stuff. So digital HR is one thing, data-driven HR is certainly another thing. Experience management from the HR perspective. So understanding your candidates, your managers, your employees as consumers of HR services, come up with a great experience for your employee base. This is certainly something which will be probably very, very important to get this right. Then maybe also the barista HR role. We can also dream a little bit, but let's see when this may come over the mid or long term. So with all of that, I have to say, exciting times. And I'm personally super passionate to get this right, because this is probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity or once-in-a-generation opportunity with HR having a seat at the table now after Corona to bring things to the next level and to get the future right. So therefore, a huge opportunity for all of us in the HR space. I'm very much looking forward to make that happen, and I'm pretty sure so are you. And therefore, I'm looking forward to seeing all of you in the future. Thank you.